town manager and code official from the town of Holden. And with me is Arthur Unofsky, my newest assistant and my protege to be mentored. We're doing the Mentoring Mondays program for the International Code Council this afternoon, or well, this morning when you're going to be viewing it. So we can start with some sample interview questions. If Art, you'd like to fire away.
Okay. How old were you when you entered the building safety profession? What drew you to this line of work? And now, with years of experience in the industry, what advice would you offer to your younger self?
I began when I was 22 years old. I was asked to fill in for 15 weeks in the city of Brewer, Maine, to fill in for somebody who was on maternity leave, which was fortunate enough to turn into part-time, which turned into full-time. And within my first 9 months, I was the department head for the city of Brewer. Years of experience thus far is coming in on 8 years this summer. And offer advice to my younger self would probably be put as much time into the book as you possibly can, while at the same time reaching out to those that have the experience in the field, because that experience is going away as fast as it's coming in. So that's the best advice I could give, is to reach out.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see, who mentored you? How did you meet that individual? Can you recall a lesson or an instance of judgment that influenced your career?
The individual who mentored me's name was Stuart M. Brooks, who was the code official in 8 different communities when I met him. He was filling in part-time in the city of Brewer, training both myself and my boss at the time in the duties of code enforcement. We had an opportunity to work very closely together. He taught me a lot of lessons. Being as green as I was to the profession, it was an opportunity for me to learn from someone who is seasoned of almost 30 years. And I would say the number one lesson Stu was able to impart to me was one day we were on a job site and I was bending over backwards with a resident trying to help them work through their electrical issues so that they could get power turned on. And the resident just was fighting tooth and nail every chance they got. They wanted to be combative in the issue, and finally Stu looked at me, pulled me aside, got in the truck and said, one thing, you got power at your house? I said, yeah. He goes, what are you worrying about? So I said, you know, you can only lead a horse to water, but unless you drown it, you can't make it drink.
Make him drink.
So, you know, when I heard that, it kind of put things into a whole new perspective for me, and it's kind of the attitude I've taken thus far. So,
along that line, have you ever read any books on mentoring or being a leader? How did you feel the first time someone actually asked you for professional advice on their career?
Well, my background from university is actually in public administration, so my tutelage comes from operational standpoint, managing, working with folks, bringing them on board. But I will say, the first time somebody asked my professional expertise on either a recommendation for a job or my opinion in something code related, I was like, wait, you're asking me? I'm the young guy in the room. But it goes to show that if you work hard, you keep your nose in the book, and you're willing to go out and meet people, that respect is earned. It's certainly not something that's given.
And along the lines of mentoring, who have you mentored in your career? And why did you invest the time with that person?
Well, that's a unique question for our situation, because you're my first mentoree. And reality is, there's a lot of folks out there that have done code enforcement and been a code official, but what drew me to mentoring you was your attitude. When you first came to us, you were going to be plowing part-time seasonally for us, but I've been looking for a code official for quite a while now. And the attitude meant more to me than anything. Anybody can learn code enforcement, but to have the soft skills, the people skills to carry a project from point A to point B to point C is really what drove me to offer you the position and bring you on and help work you through the wonderful world of code enforcement.
Well, I'm glad you did.
And I'm sorry in advance.
You did. What experience did you have before you got into the world of code and stuff. Did you have background in trades, any building background? Or?
I had a minute background in building, mostly from a maintenance standpoint. I was the lucky individual in college that the joke was I got paid to drive around in circles on a Zamboni at the university for the hockey rink. That every week was something was breaking and we were trying to fix, usually to code. But other than that, my background is probably heavier on the administrative standpoint and the zoning ordinances and policies and things of that nature, drafting rather than actual implementation.
You've had the opportunity, you've been doing this for a while now. You've seen automation and technology change the building inspection and construction industries. What changes do you see coming in the future?
For our neck of the woods, in the state of Maine, we're usually a half a step shy, unfortunately. But one of the things that I've seen recently, and I'm very anxious to bring on, is the ease of inspections. Having a sheet digitally that we can be in the field, check off, yes, this meets the framing spec, yes, this meets the plumbing spec, and have that digitally just sync right to our home base. And that way, if we have a need for a file the next day, the next week, 5 years from now, we can pull it up that on such and such a day, this was signed off, we have the photos we can take with an iPad or a similar device to just sync it right to, and we're good to go. It's a easy record keeping versus being on site, jotting the notes in the back of the paper permit, coming back, making more notes, getting interrupted, and then never finishing it. So I think it's going to make us a better tool for the future.
Through the technology and the. Let's go to another question now. What would you say to a young man or woman who is just entering the building code and the building safety career? What words of wisdom would you give them?
Talk to anybody and everybody you can. Reach out to them. If they don't reach out to you, take the opportunity, because as we've seen in the code enforcement division, even at the state of Maine and nationwide, it's a dwindling profession. Those that have been around a long time are starting to retire, get to that stage in their life that they can move on. And unfortunately, when that happens, a lot of knowledge base is going to walk out the door with them. So anything somebody coming in can do to relate themselves, to get a lesson learned, to have some institutional knowledge, which no matter what agency you're working for, is worth its weight in gold. Recently, one of the counterparts, Mike Falvey in the area, and I went to the Eastern Maine Community College to speak with the students there. We had 18 kids in the class, and at the end of it, one of them came up to us and said, "Hey, this sounds like a great profession. How can I get into it?" I said, "Here's our cards. Where do you live? Talk to your planning board. Talk to your code officer." And a week later, I got a call from the code officer in the town he lives in and said, "Who in the heck is this kid and why is he calling me?" I said, "He's interested. He wants to learn. He wants to help. He wants to take your job someday. Help him." And he goes, "Really? The kid's interested?" I said, "He is. Let's go there. Let's bring in the next generation. Let's make an emerging leader."
It's excellent. Now, on the other hand, what would you say to that veteran that's got 5-6 years left, and he's going to be getting out of the career field? What would you say to that individual?
I would say the same thing. Reach out to if you know of a new somebody coming on or somebody interested in the profession, reach out, bring them to a training, almost any local training or state training. If you call them up and say, "Hey, I got somebody who's interested, they're young, they're thinking about the profession," I know any training that we put on in the Northern Maine chapter, we would waive the fee in a heartbeat just to get them through the door, get them interested, because it's a dying breed. I mean, I was the youngest code officer in the state of Maine for 5 years in a row. Luckily now to say I'm not, but I'm getting grayer, so.
Based on this, what do you think we could do to do a better job letting the public know about the building inspector, the building code officer's role in their community? How could we open up to them a little more and get them possibly more involved, or at least educated on what we do?
Well, I think it's a two-pronged approach, one of which is what we're doing with this video is Building Safety Month. The month of May is Building Safety Month, sponsored by the ICC and the respective jurisdictions and chapters, which is huge because it gets us the word out and to the public and to the residents and to the developers. The second prong is the social media aspect, which is something we've discussed quite a bit with ICC and emerging leaders, is that so many people in this day and age don't watch the news to get their news, they get it on their phone. and that's just the way it works now. You get it on Facebook, you get it on Twitter, you get it on Instagram. And getting that social media blast out there, people say, well, geez, I saw something on Facebook when I was flipping through the other day about deck construction and everything else. Should I get a permit for that if I'm going to put a deck on my house? Geez, maybe I should just call and make it easier. The guy seems pretty nice. I saw his picture on Facebook. So I think it's a complex issue, but we have the tools, I think, to do it fairly inexpensively.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And so we get the word out there, and like you said, you have uninterested young people that might want to do the job or interested in. What would you look for in hiring an inspector? You've mentioned the attitude and stuff. What other things would you like to see or background that they would have in order to possibly bring them on or hire them?
Well, one thing that always comes up whenever we talk about the next generation, be it the millennial generation or the generation after, is that there's always that stereotype that they're not going to show up to work. They're lazy. They want to work from home. They want to, they don't have the work ethic. I think you find that in every generation across the board. There's always that niche few that spoil it for everybody. But I think finding somebody who'd be willing to show up to the job, someone who has a passion for what they do, because at the end of the day, if you're not passionate about this position, you will not succeed in it, unfortunately. You have to be really willing to go that extra mile to help somebody, to make sure their building is safe, to make sure the public is safe. And if somebody has that drive to do it, so at the end of their career, they can look back after 30, 35 years and say, I started here, and this is the impact. This is what I've done in this community, in this jurisdiction, in this area of my life. This is the impact I've made. And somebody who's willing to do that, I think, would make a great code official.
Excellent. And based on that, why don't we close up with this? You make an impact every day. You make an impact on the daily lives of the people in your community. When you first took on this job as the code enforcement officer, what were you looking at for goals and responsibilities that you would have as the code enforcement officer?
I'll be honest, when I first started, I didn't have a clue. It's one of those jobs that it's different jurisdiction to jurisdiction. I mean, in Holden, for the past 4 years, I've served as town manager, building official, road commissioner, health officer, plumbing inspector, fair hearing officer. When I was in Brewer, I was the code official, the electrical inspector, and the health officer, and the plumbing inspector. So it varies greatly, but at the end of the day, with a lot of jobs, you make it what you want it to be. And I think in this job, you're a lot of that leeway and that latitude to really shape it yourself and make that future, that job, that position, what you think it needs to be. And if you're wrong, somebody will tell you. So, yeah. So going off script here a little bit, as a new code official, how are you enjoying the position so far?
Well, I like people. The people in the community are fantastic. The people that I work with, you as my mentor and everything, I'm loving it. Good. It's enjoyable, and there is a sense of satisfaction when you can help somebody to, they want to build their dream home or their business, and for you to be able to guide them and help them so that the facility is a good facility, that everything is done right. And also the fact that when people look at the town of Holden, they'll know that this is a community where the facilities that you build, the properties that you invest in here are built right. Mm-hmm. It's done to code, to paraphrase, but that it's done right and that they have a good product.
Okay, and being that the whole deal with what we're doing here is the Mentoring Mondays, a lot of the videos done thus far have been younger emerging leaders such as myself interviewing their more seasoned, elder, grayer counterparts. And being that this is one of the later videos in the session, we kind of flipped it in that as an emerging leader, I'm then mentoring someone my senior. How do you feel in that situation, being mentored in the profession by someone younger than you?
I have no aversion to that at all. My background was military, and I was an older senior NCO with a lot of younger officers. I don't judge anybody by their age. I judge people by their ability, their knowledge, and the way they present that and come across. And I have no problem with you. You're professional. You're very fair. And actually, I've learned an incredible amount in just a short time that I've been doing this.
Well, I appreciate that very much. at the end of the day, I think what it just takes is a good team. Whether you're, if you're alone, you make those resources of the surrounding code officials, or if you're fortunate enough to have somebody in-house that you can work with. The larger jurisdictions may have 30 to 40 people under them. Town of Holden, for a long time it was just me, but now having somebody as a backup and assistant is huge. Just as many folks will say, just to have that second set of eyes, because you can't catch everything, but if you work with somebody, you can catch almost everything.
Well, then that works for me.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Art.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. And I hope everybody enjoys Building Safety Month and continue to mentor, because the day of tomorrow isn't ours, it's theirs.